I don't think there could be a more exciting time to be in customer success where service feels like it could be the major differentiator over the next 2 to 3 years.
That's Sam Slevin, Global SVP of Customer Success at AlphaSense, a company on a path to IPO that is dominating the information services space. And with 17 years as a CS leader, Sam's AI-era playbook isn't really about agents replacing humans. It's about creating a level of service that competitors can't match.
If you're trying to grow at 40, 50, 60, 70% growth rate, I am very concerned about making sure that this person experiences.
And Sam also pushes back on some hot trends that too many operators are blindly pursuing.
People rushing into consumption-based pricing or usage-based pricing, this isn't new. And there's tons of companies that have done this and they get addicted to this.
Plus, expect deep conversations on collapsing GTM roles, the metrics a CS leader must own, and HubSpot's risky future. All in service of helping you be the best informed revenue operator out there. Welcome to Topline.
Hey everybody, it's Sam Jacobs. You're listening to Topline. I'm the CEO Pavilion. I'm joined by my co-hosts, AJ Bruno, the CEO of QuotaPath, and Asad Zaman, the CEO of Sales Talent Agency, aka STA. And we're joined today by a very special guest. He's someone I've known for close to 16 years, I think is the amount of time I've known this person, because he used to work for me, but he's grown up and he's a big boy now. His name is Sam Slevin. He's the SVP of Global Customer Success for AlphaSense, which is a company that is one of the hottest, if not the hottest, well, besides Ramp, in New York City, past 600 million in ARR roughly, but the numbers are confidential, on a path to IPO and just dominating the information services space around the world. And so we're excited to have you on the show. Slev, welcome to the show. Sam Slevin.
I am thrilled to be here. I've actually worked for you twice.
Oh, that's true. I forgot about the muse. I try to put that, I try to banish that from my mind.
Did he fire you one of those times, Sam?
No, I get fired. Oh, here's what happens, and this is before he can say it. What happens is that I give him a leadership position. I get fired. Often when I'm like traveling or something, or he was traveling. The first time he was traveling and I got fired, and he's like, hey, sorry about that. And then he immediately gets promoted to the ELT. And that's typically what happened. But he's not conspiring in any way. But most of at the Muse and Axial, I got fired, and then he continued to thrive because he's great.
No, I was actually at a client site both times in San Francisco, and I was like having deja vu when the CEO called me and said, we've parted ways with Sam. And the first time I was really shocked and wasn't really sure exactly what to do. And the second time I was like, I
deserved it.
He was counting down the days.
He had it coming.
Anyway, we're here to talk about customer success, the rise, the demise, the return, the resurgence, all of the things. Asad, did I get that right?
You did. Customer success in the age of AI, Sam. So the layup is this. Customer success is an invention of the SaaS era. We didn't really have it before that. But towards the end of the SaaS era, customer success had become the punching bag of go-to-market. And people looking from the outside were complaining that customer success doesn't bring enough value. They aren't doing enough to drive expansion, retention, upselling, cross-selling. And then people from the inside were saying, hey, from day one, you've given us the most important responsibility, which is to make the recurring revenue recur. But you've looked at us as a cost center. You've understaffed us, underappreciated us, under-resourced us. And so what do you expect when we have 1,000 accounts per rep? What can we do? What magic can we do? And so that was the fight that was going on towards the end of the SaaS era. Now AI is here, and it's making us rethink how we do everything, how we go to market, how we structure these teams. And so maybe the place to start is your reflections on the shift in customer success post AI. What does it feel like now? And what's possible today in customer success that wasn't possible before?
I guess one thing that I'd kind of want to define or step back from is, what does customer success mean? And I think that part of the issue and some of the narrative that you were talking about, there's been this debate of, should customer success own a number? Should it be usage-based? Should it be an NPS score? Should it be some sort of vanity metric that may or may not drive impact? And so like in my 17 years of customer success and leadership within customer success, that has never actually been a debate for me. I would never take a role that doesn't have revenue focused and like impact, owning a number, calling your forecast from day one of what does the renewal rate look like, how are you driving pipeline and things like that. So I do think what happened was, as my industry was under attack in a lot of ways, I think there were these lots of things that got bucketed under what customer success is and what it means. And so I kind of wanted to like make sure that we're talking about exactly the same thing there. The first thing that I always do at any company that I join is make sure that we have a forecast that we are focusing on bottoms up, top down, and bottoms up, that everyone is calling their number. We're validating that in the exact same way that you do a sales forecast. And if you do that and you are treated as a revenue function, I've never really experienced that. Maybe because I've had great leadership over previous companies. Sam, twice.
How many digs are we going to have in this episode?
I said great leadership.
No, great leadership. This is one of the things I think it actually used to be more of a debate. And so that was like the one positive thing towards this end of this SaaS customer success hype cycle, ZERP, whatever you want to call it, that we actually got to set the record straight that it's always been about revenue and it's always been about driving revenue. Now, making sure that you drive value greater than price is at the core of what you do. So how is that changing, I guess, is your question, right?
Yeah. Well, I think as you were talking, something that's interesting is there's one difference between marketing and CS and sales. There's no person in sales who doesn't think they should own a revenue number. Whereas in both marketing and customer success, there are these two schools of thought, two types of people, right? Like people like you that are like, hey, there has to be a number associated with this. And that really helps you do your job very, very well. But there are a lot of customer success leaders that didn't want the number. Same with marketing, right? There was this huge debate. Should marketing have a number? How can marketing have a number? And the best marketers, they do own a number and they do drive against that. But there was this bifurcation. So it's interesting that there are these schools of thought. Do you think that there is more consensus in your world that customer success today should always own a number? And is that number primarily renewals, or do you also think of upselling, cross-selling, expansion? What all constitutes the number to you?
Yeah. So I think you absolutely need to own a gross renewal rate and a gross retention rate. And for me, there should be no debate on that. I feel like I'll plug another thing of Sam's. I don't know. Well, I teach in the CRO school, customer success fundamentals. And I actually feel I've been teaching it for, I think, 9 quarters now. And I actually think 8 quarters ago, there was a bit of a debate, and now everyone understands. Everyone who comes in, it's you obviously own a gross retention number. Then I think there's a debate to be had about growth numbers, what you own as a result, how commercial oriented do you want your team to be, and I think that very much depends on your business and what does cross-sell, upsell look like? How are you segmented by SMB, strat? What type of customers are you working with? Overall, I can talk about what we do and what I've done at the last couple of companies that I've been at that's worked really effectively is that, yes, if you want to join a high growth, high velocity company, you absolutely need to own an upsell and growth number. Now, I believe that doing that in conjunction with sales is really important, actually, if you're trying to grow at 40, 50, 60, 70% growth rate, because you need someone protecting the flank and making sure that we are thinking about how do we service this organization. And I am very concerned about making sure that this person experiences more value than they are paying for the price. And I am like solely focused on that. If I've done that, and that could be through adoption, health score, strategic business reviews, value reviews, in-person meetings, building relationships, all the different things that people have talked about. If you've actually done that really, really effectively, then you've earned the right to source pipeline. And so you can't source pipeline if the account isn't healthy and you don't have good advocates and good people working for you. And so I believe that, yes, you should have a pipeline number that you're responsible for, but it should be different than what the AEs are doing and what the SDRs
Yeah.
are doing.
Yeah.
They are looking for new pockets, people that don't hear that, softening the ground, working in concert with marketing. And we are building on relationships that we have delivered value time and time again and saying, since this is working for you, is there another teammate that you should do? My AE partner hasn't got an answer from this managing director at your team. Can you make that introduction? Because we've been such good valued partners for you. And if that happens, then you're sourcing qualified pipeline, and then you're naturally growing with the accounts. We see 80% of our pipeline from customer success close because it's qualified. And I know Sam may make a comment of what's going on with the with
Right. You,
AJ
you, you
RevOps
create the
team. And
opportunity right before it closes.
exactly. There probably is some of that because but there's a vetting of it. And then once it gets entered at a certain stage, it is much more likely to close because it's from a customer.
Especially when it's at the procurement stage.
Right. Create
It's in red.
opportunity.
It's in red lines. 20% of red line.
Samuel for today. When you look at
Seriously, who
how
are you talking to? We're both Samuel.
you, Samuel, you're
Me.
Samuel
Okay,
today.
okay,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah. So when you meet executives in customer success and in marketing who for their entire careers have never owned these numbers, and then you meet somebody like Sam here who speaks the way he speaks, that's super compelling. If you're a company hiring an executive for customer success, this is very compelling. Do you think anyone will believe executives who have up till now never owned a number but are like, we're down to do it now? Or do you think that is going to become a big impediment for their career progression, and it opens up an opportunity for the people that are taking CRO school and are coming in with the right perspective and are developing out now?
I definitely think there's skepticism around people that have not owned it. There's skepticism in general. Listen, this is a podcast. I'm paid to the extent that I'm paid to share my open and honest opinions. And I think that there's ageism, but it's not quite ageism. It's sort of intensityism. And I think that people that say, "I've never owned a number, but I'm game to try." I love working remotely, but I'll come into the office one day a week. Like, I think that it's a tough operating environment, and and managers and CEOs and boards are looking for, I don't want to blow smoke up his rear end, but people like Sam, because roles are collapsing. Also what you mentioned about, I forget which company you were referencing, where product and designer and UX are all combining into one person. Everywhere I look, I see, as to your point of the theme of concentration, I see roles collapsing. And we don't have the luxury of having one group of people that don't have a number, that are held accountable to non-revenue based metrics, and then another group of people that is account managers that are supposed to be driving upsells and expansion, and then another group of people that are supposed to be driving new business, and then another group of people that are quote unquote support, that are filling out tickets but aren't actually customer success, depending on the purist that's having that debate. I just don't think that I don't think OpEx has the space for those kinds of people. And so I think that, yeah, people will be judged. And again, to the point, it's not necessarily that they're old, or, my age, I'll say my age. It's not necessarily that, they're very comfortable living in Barcelona, for example. It's just that there's a level of intensity that you're going to have to communicate, that's going to have credibility. And that's what people are going to be judged on.
There's a bigger hill to climb for somebody who is a C-level exec today who in either of those two functions has up till now never owned it. Like, how do you convince someone that you can be trusted with that number is this big hill to climb. Sam, bringing this to today with AI, there's a lot of really interesting conversations happening around org design, role definition, jobs to be done. What's changed for you as a CS leader in terms of how you think about org design, how you think about headcount distribution, how you think about the things that you do to be able to drive those metrics? What's changed today?
I think you all have talked about this a bunch as I've listened is that I actually think Sam will take the skeptical side. This will give you guys a little insight into how we work together. I'll take the positive side, and then we flip throughout the time. But I don't think there could be a more exciting time to be in customer success, where service feels like it could be the major differentiator over the next 2 to 3 years. Listening to your customers, being really, really clear. Like, we've been banging away on we're having Claude now, and no one is teaching me how to use this. And I think, Sam, you were talking about, maybe I don't know how to do X, Y, or Z. And today I was just getting trained by someone on my team, and they're like, if you create a project and you really ask Claude how to give it instructions on how to create a project, then it stops losing its focus as much. And I'm like, they're not doing anything just like, how much time am I going to spend and put up front into this thing that maybe will get me to a better area, versus you have this vertically integrated platform right now, and we have a team that is dying to connect the dots for our customers and tell a story and meet them in person and understand what they're actually trying to do, and bring them along on the journey with them. And like, AI is going to impact and touch every single industry, and no one has experience doing this before. So like, if you're a learner, if you are curious about what your customers are doing, like, you listen to customers and they're scared too. Everyone is like nervous about, am I doing enough? Do I know what's going on? Is my organization AI fluent enough? The answer is probably no, you're not doing enough. No, we're not AI fluent enough. No, like, on any of these things. But like, if you're asking those questions and you're paranoid by those things, I think, and you're just like listening to your customers, that's such an exciting paradigm shift that's happening. And I actually think that people are underwriting for the first time the way that they did things. They're actually willing to change, because there's such an avalanche of FOMO that is happening. And so, like, for an example, I still use OneNote, which I probably shouldn't anymore, but like, I'm in the habit of, like, anytime I meet with someone, I take out OneNote, I create a tab. It's at least this one single repository of where I could be. Now I use Granola and
You're like the one person who hasn't churned from that. Like, you're known by name right up top at
This
Microsoft.
is
Like,
the power of SaaS. He represents the terminal value of OneNote.
But like, so I like that. But like, I'm now, for the first time, I'm like, shouldn't I be using a Notion page for every single meeting that I have, and then having that integrate with, like, and so it's like, I'm taking notes. I don't really care where I'm taking notes. It's a repository that I can search and find, and that's fine. And I feel like everyone is going through that. So if you have these deep customer relationships, or you really care, then I think, like, the ability to deliver value and the ability to take your customers along the journey with you. I I'm obviously biased, but I think that service is the differentiator over the next 1 to 3 years. And then it may change, and it probably will change. But like, right now is the moment that is exciting.
Sam, I'm 100% with you on this point, and I think it's so interesting that everyone's trying to solve for AI scale, and everyone's trying to have these conversations back and forth that you lose your authenticity around it. I just like I don't know about you all, but the last just week even, sometimes I feel like this just back and forth conversation where I'm reading something that is clearly AI driven, but is so long. I'm like, I don't, I'm like, I'm done with this conversation. And versus having a customer call and talking about customer value and having conversation, whether you have OneNote or granola in the background, doesn't matter. And like extracting that and feeling like that's actually what people are craving. It's so interesting to see the FOMO aspect of it, that people think of like, oh, I need to get an AI tech enabled services, which I understand was something that we're thinking of. We're not just thinking about what we're going to be implement. And AlphaSense has been an awesome partner for us on that endeavor as well, where it's really great to solve really challenging problems and customer problems. And AlphaSense is doing that. And I'm kind of curious, Sam, as you think about this for CS, because you all are solving multiple problems over the last several years. You had the merger or acquisition of Tigris. You have all of these different kind of product lines coming into under the fold under your purview. How do you manage the focus of the team with all of the noise and AI distraction out there with what AlphaSense has to offer, which is a phenomenal product? Like, how do you balance those two things?
Yeah, I mean, I think at the end of the day, I am fortunate that I work at an amazing product that is AI at the center. And so, uh, we you've mentioned those acquisitions, really savvy acquisitions by our leadership team. Content plays, kind of seeing where the puck is going in terms of completely proprietary content machines that give the difference of a robust answer for investment grade type of decisions or multi-million-dollar decisions. So really fortunate on that, and our product team continues to absolutely keep up and exceed the market expectations like day in and day out. And so like I'm lucky to I feel fortunate
You're
about.
along for the ride without Sam as your boss. It's great.
You just didn't have the right product market fit. I was this customer success team that I would say was tech enabled. And so if you have a tech enabled product, then that feels like the customer success or account managers or support team is bridging the gap on the product. Now, what I have at AlphaSense is we have this, I just got to get you to use the product, and I got to make sure that I change the way that like I change your behavior, and I tell you a story, I connect the value, and once you start using it, there like the product works. It works incredibly well. So I think like your question, AJ, was like, how do we stay focused? I think it comes down to segmentation. Ultimately, it's like what's important for a strat account might not be the same thing that's important for a mid-market account. And what's different for corporate, a corporate IR user at a Fortune 500 company, it's going to be very different for a life sciences mid-cap company, and all those things in between, and making sure that you have the right playbooks and focus and areas that go after that. And just, I want to make sure that I like what you guys were talking about before. If we circle back to like support, customer success, I think we were talking about at the leadership level, that's where you need. I definitely have people, just to be like really clear. The last thing I want to do is get into any sort of trouble. I have an amazing head of support. I have amazing customer success leaders, but it's all I own the number of what levers do we pull to deliver gross and net. And sometimes you need to be support heavy on a very technical product. Sometimes it needs to be more consultative. So like I have all those things underneath me and within my group. So I want to be really clear that those people are doing unbelievable work, and that I'm not saying that those roles are not really, really important.
One of the big conversations these days in go-to-market is productivity per person across all functions. How productive can an AE be? If the quota to OTE ratio on average for a Series B company was 4 times your OTE is your quota, can it be 8? Can it be 10? How productive can a rep get? And so as you look at CS today, and this is a department where often when I talk to customer success leaders, a common frustration is we don't have enough headcount against the number of accounts that we have. And actually, Samuel had released really interesting data. When markets would go down, they would add headcount into customer success because they would do a potential churn analysis and be like, shit, we are understaffed. Let's give more headcount there, even when they were doing layoffs elsewhere. So this has been a systemic issue in CS. What do you think is going to shift? Like, do you think the average CS person in your team can be a year from now twice as productive, 50% more productive, 3 times more productive? Like, what's this like goal that you guys are working towards? Or do you even think about that?
I definitely think about that. I definitely want to increase productivity and ARR per AM. What's interesting is I feel like there's a finance model, and then there's a real life model. And then what you do is you figure out what is the difference between those things and where do you give time back. So what I mean by that is finance will say we need $15 million per AM.
I love
Accounts
that
are
number, by the way. 15 million is a huge book.
Yeah, I mean I'm starting at the great end.
That's a
I'll
glorious
work on.
number. That sounds great to me.
Yeah, but like we weren't able to get there until we had one customer or two customers paying us that. So now that's your full-time job, is that customer. And then there's a whole cohort of people supporting it with between AEs and SDRs and support and CSMs, and we're walking the halls in those organizations, and all those types of things that come along with that, implementation, etc. And so that's doable if it's one account. Then what I try and understand is like what actually breaks. So we're a user-based model today. We've been rolling out now team-based and API-based and consumption-based is starting to go out and market as well. But like in the mid-market or in that area, we may have $3 million. And like maybe that doesn't work within the model, but if there's accounts and a users that a certain person can manage today, and that's the most that they can manage. So then I start to look at, okay, that doesn't work with the finance model. So in 2020, we'll say it's $3 million and it needs to go up to 3.5 and gain that. So it's like, then I understand what are the things that are doing that are preventing the team from fulfilling. Why can't they be at 600? Why can't they be at 700 users? Why can't they be at 800 users? And so that usually comes down to operational issues and inefficiencies. Is it billing? Is it the AM to AE handoff? Are they working with too many AEs? And you start to figure out, what is the 10%? If I move this 10% burden, then what do I do? And so that's where I start to think about, like, that's how I think about my job, is like, I need to spend time unblocking the biggest thing that will move the efficiency needle. And if I don't, or a productivity needle, and if I don't do that this year, then I'm not going to be able to meet the needs of the finance team overall. And so I explained to them, this is where you want us to be. This is where we are. This would put risk at a renewal rate, churn rate, et cetera. And then you start to layer in things like digital success and some of those other layers of like, how do you move up and down the markets and segment how you support the teams as a result.
AJ, for your size of business, if you what software do you spend the most money on?
Is it an intercom? I heard.
Oh, it got me. Yes, I spend $75 million on intercom a year.
Oh, yeah.
8-figure
They were
deal.
hit Series B. They didn't give it to him. They took
Absolutely
it.
crushed. I believe Gong or Salesforce is probably the most that we spend on. One of those two. Probably Gong,
So,
actually.
if Gong allocated Mindy, like a one-mind customer success person to you, but it was good, like it was competent, it was on top of it, but it wasn't a human, what would your reaction be like very quickly?
I just thought about your question. We definitely spend the most on Claude as software today.
Okay,
Not even
fair.
not even close.
Because what if Claude gave you a virtual, because they give you no one today?
That is actually an interesting thing, because I use ChatGPT's voice mode, and like when I'm running or after a run, I'll use it, but Claude doesn't seem to have a similar applicable. So I feel like I have to use
They have
Whisper.
voice
and then
mode.
it doesn't have voice mode? Is as good
Yeah.
as Claude as ChatGPT's?
No, but Thinking Machines just released some wild stuff yesterday.
Yeah.
Ooh,
Remember
Thinking
Rossi's
Machines
company?
release products.
But what they released, Sam, was gangster, like actual gangster.
Why is it gangster?
This is such a side topic, but
Was it a good one?
in
This is what
voice
we wanna know.
interaction, there's this concept of you talk, you
Lag.
stop talking, it processes, it responds.
Yeah, the
So
lag.
when humans talk to each other, it takes 400 milliseconds on average to get a response. That feels like a human interaction. AI is much longer than that. It's why it feels different. They just released a model that is at 400 milliseconds, meaning it now feels human at the speed of human interaction. And basically what it is it's multimodal as well. So it can observe you and talk to you and react to you much faster than other models do. So while all other models are about you talk, you stop, it processes, it gives you answer, this one's more like a human interaction, like a back and forth. And that's a huge shift.
I've thought a lot about this. Is like I think and process so quickly. We all do, and so having a interaction with any of our software has to be at the exact same speed. And if there's a lag between the two, it's a turn off. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, have you ever logged into your computer and like Slack takes 3 seconds to load, and you're like, WTF? Why is this taking so long? I could be so more productive right now.
That's why people prefer WhatsApp to Slack, because WhatsApp feels much more real time. And Slack has some latency thing that makes it feel like it's getting bounced through 3 servers for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Speed has been the defining feature of all advancement in technology since the beginning of time. Everything was that's why, remember when Google used to publish how long the search took and how many milliseconds it
yes.
took.
On that
I'd be
note-
curious I feel like you're hosting, but I want to flip, like, what are you
Please.
seeing in terms of on the.
We don't like asking Asad questions.
Yeah,
We just-
it just gets heated. He makes He gets in
He
trouble. He
he
offends
says
people.
things, people get upset,
Yeah.
we get
Like,
reviews.
he trash talks the head of RevOps. He's very anti-RevOps, as you know.
I've heard, yeah, I've heard that. I've also heard his talks on customer success at times. I definitely have ping Sam and say I want to get on there.
Founders, he trashes founders.
Oh,
Founder mode
definitely.
isn't a thing.
I think he was quoting the Slootman, like, "What's the point of customer success?" Over the course of the year. But what do you see on the searching side? Is our CCO searches up? Our VP of Customer Success? Are you seeing that more fold into presidents or CEOs, or no, not yet?
What you find is that there is just more demand in market for go-to-market roles, more generally speaking. There's this definite spike of a very noticeable sort in RevOps. It's never been a harder market for RevOps, never been harder to fill RevOps searches. Makes a lot of sense. How can you be super AI forward without great RevOps? And there's only so many great ones out there, so the searches are really, really tough. Customer success is up as well, but there is a lot of conversation happening around what does the look and feel of the future post-sales team look like. So on the product side, there's this idea going around right now that engineering, design, and product, they collapse into what we call builders. They're just it's a builder. They do all the things required to build shit. And so what's that version of go-to-market, pre-sales, sales, and post-sales? That's an active conversation because with AI, you have to do so much more handholding of a customer to help them learn how to use the product. But then also, as models keep improving, every 3 to 6 months, OpenAI and Anthropic will release a new model. You have to retrain the product, you have to retrain the customer. So there's a lot more handholding. And so, what's the relationship between a FDE and a CS person, and then them with sales or account management? Like, how does that play together? I think no one's figured it out, but it is an active conversation happening. And how that affects the searches for what you're saying is people are looking for people that are at least aware that this is the question to be thinking about. And then because they have meditated on this question, they have interesting ideas, not like a prescription of like, I figured it out, this is how we do it, but here's where we could go with this. Versus there are a lot of leaders, and these would be the ones that have never owned the number before, that the conversation is very fluffy and surface level with them. And so then you don't feel like this person is going to keep me at the edge of what's possible. They want to keep me in the past. And so that's playing out a lot.
Sam, I do have a plug for Pavilion Gold on this exact point that Asad is making. It's kind of interesting. So Emily from your team reached out to me and she said, hey, someone from the Mexico Pavilion Gold trip wants to talk benchmarking. They're looking at a new role. And I talked to them yesterday and they had two different roles that they were looking at. One was a chief customer officer at a PE-backed company, and the other was a CRO at a PE-backed company, very similar size. And so we were looking at benchmarks, and I think it's kind of interesting to see this trend where PE probably is going to be pushing to chief customer officer role, in part because the benchmarks are actually quite a bit lower in total base and total compensation. And so we were looking at this in these two worlds and going through both Carta and QuotaPath's data, and both had the same conclusion, which is it was about 30% difference in total comp in chief customer officer in same location, same everything else industry than it was CRO level. I wonder if that's something that the PE will catch on and push towards as well. And it's definitely a CRO role, to be clear, the role job description. And they even said like the predecessor was a CRO. Now it's a chief customer officer role.
We hope they're not so cynical that the only reason they're changing it is to pay that.
I think there's part and parcel to it. I don't know if Sam, if
Okay.
oh, go ahead.
On that
Sam,
note,
Asad
on
wants
that
to-
great note, a great point, but we're done. We're done with topic one.
Switch topics, right?
It's time. It is time to not just switch topics, Sam. It's time to have some fun. We're going to play a game. It is quiz, pro, quo, pro. Quo. I love how it's never on track.
that's the
Sam,
joke.
you have heard, you know what this is. 3 questions, the 3 of you versus me. I'll give you the question, I'll give you the options. Try to get 2 out of 3 right. Things about the history of our ecosystem today. We will learn a little bit about
You're
the past.
15-0 against Asad, by the way. We've never lost to him ever.
So
I'm gonna try.
whatever he asks, the important note is you should know. the answer to
You
this
have
question.
to know this. This
Yeah.
is your history. Sam, this
Yeah.
is your history, actually.
We
You
do
should
rely
know
on the guests on these.
Yeah.
Okay,
Not even good.
question number 1. Who created the first customer success team in the history of tech? Option number 1, Salesforce. Option number 2, Siebel Systems. Option number 3, Gainsight. Option number 4, Vantiv.
I believe it's Salesforce, but now that feels like too obvious. What do you guys think?
We talk about it. I mean, Gainsight was definitely the like
It was
category
not
creator.
Gainsight. I
It's
think
not
it was
Gainsight, though.
Salesforce, but maybe it was Siebel because
Vantiv's the outlier in this. I feel like that was just either a
think-
red herring or it's definitely Vantiv.
yeah,
Siebel Systems was before Salesforce, right? Like that was the
Yeah.
first CRM.
Salesforce was formed in response to Siebel
I
Systems.
think Sam's right though.
And we
Salesforce. I think
I'm gonna go
that,
with Salesforce. I'm gonna support.
Are you guys
Slev.
want to lock it in?
I don't like that look on your face, Asad. I just want to go on.
I'm taking that as a lock-in. You're wrong. The assumption is
Oh. How do you sleep at night? How do you
so nicely. So everybody thinks it's Salesforce. It is not Salesforce. It is actually Vantiv. Vantiv created the first customer success team in the history of sales. They had a massive churn problem, massive. Like it was just a leaky bucket. And they were trying to figure out what to do with it. And they decided, why don't we create this team that will basically look for signals of upcoming churn, and they will then go and firefight against that upcoming churn and try to turn that thing around. It was structured as a cost center, and because it was conceptualized and structured in its first incarnation as a cost center, that became a through line for customer success up till today, where it is looked at as a cost center. There
this
you
is
go.
like accounting where you have assets and liabilities, and everyone's like, "But people are liabilities," and that's been since the dawn of time. What year, Asad, was this?
This was in the late 1990s.
Late 1990s.
Okay, question number 2.
90s.
Who in the history of sales is responsible for separating prospecting from closing? Option number 1,
Salesforce.
IBM. Option number 2, Salesforce. Option number 3, NCR.
You think Salesforce? No, I mean predictable revenue. Because
Aaron
predictable
Ross?
revenue?
NCR, like National Cash Register.
Yeah.
Who is the second one?
IBM or Salesforce?
It's got to be one of the first two. It's not Salesforce.
Salesforce, predictable revenue, Aaron Ross.
Yeah, but he
NCR?
he ripped that off of other people.
I don't know. Cleb, go. What do you think?
Bit salty towards Aaron Ross.
IBM feels like the answer because it was early on and they probably started to do something.
NCR's the cooler. I'm going NCR.
Well, if you
NCR?
said Oracle, that would have confused me. But I think IBM. I'm with Slevin on this one.
NCR
I
is
think-
like a cool thing to
You
say.
have to lock in. You have to have consensus. This is about
Don't have to
consensus.
do anything.
Let's
You
go
know?
with Sam. Let's go with Sam Jacobs. So let's go with Samuel because when he's wrong, then we can hate on him. So we're going in with NCR.
I can
You're
get
going with
fired.
NCR.
again.
It was NCR.
good
NCR.
All right, Sam, you're so smart.
NCR basically created a team that would go out and they would essentially sellers back in the day were called drummers and they would do everything. And NCR basically was the first company that said, we'll take prospecting and educating the customer away from the salesperson, and then we will help them develop leads that they go and close. It led to two things. It helped them in the early 1900s use this approach to drive 30% of their revenue internationally, which was quite unheard of at that time for a business of this sort. It also then led to their salespeople, the closers, getting really good at figuring out how to be consistent with closing, and they figured out the script. So come up with a script, say it each time, and that led to the first ever sales playbook.
I think you wrote
created.
about this in a top line newsletter, drumming up
did.
business. You
That's
did.
why you should have known this. Okay. NCR is also famous, question number 3, for using sales sequences for the first time. They used it through direct mail back then, but they came up with the first sales sequence. How many times did they mail their prospects? What was their sequence, you think? Number 1, option, 6 times a week for 3 weeks. Option number 2, 6 times a month for 3 months. Option number 3, 6 times a quarter for 3 quarters. What do you think was the sequence NCR used when they came up with this?
early 1900s, if they're doing 6 times a week you said 3 weeks?
Yeah, that was option one.
I'm going to go 6 times a quarter for 3 quarters.
What do you think, Slevin?
So what was it, 6 times a
A
week
week for
for
3
3
weeks.
weeks?
6 times a month for 3 months.
I feel like that's the one.
Austin's
Constant.
ploy is just to confuse us with numbers and days and weeks. Like, I
All
think you
right.
said
I'll go with
yeah.
we'll lock her in around Slev. 6
Yeah.
times a week for 3 weeks.
You are right. Isn't that
All right.
crazy?
So
Yeah.
great.
So this was so intense that they would get mails back. One customer said, "For heaven's sake, let up! What have we done to you?" And he would not let up. He actually then scaled this up, where they had 1.5 million people in a list of mails, and then they would just hit them 6 times a week. They didn't do it on the 7th day because the mail couldn't get to them.
Oh
Do they
my
call
God,
it
that's great.
sequences?
That is a great little anecdote.
Yeah. Do they call
Isn't
it
that-
sequences though? You said sequence at the beginning. I can't imagine they're using
They
the
didn't
term
call it
sequence.
that, but that was the
Okay.
first known incarnation of a sequence. And with that, you have won today. And we're back to topic number 2, which is a lot to do with this transition that's happening in the market, Sam. As AI is going deeper and deeper into the market, one of the changes it's driving is a shift from seat-based pricing models to usage-based pricing models. And that changes everything, right? The job of a salesperson is very different when you are selling usage/consumption versus seats. And I would imagine on the post-sales side, there's a difference there as well. Maybe the place to start is just frame that for us. I'm sure you guys have given this some thought. What's different about a customer success team that is in a primarily consumption/usage-based environment versus a seat-based environment, if anything?
I think everyone wants to go consumption based, and I pay for the outcomes, and I'm happy to pay for that. And then AJ and many, many other people are saying, this is now my biggest expense possible. And I didn't even know how to do this. And I think the Uber CEO just recently said, I'm back to the drawing board. We're out of tokens already. And so what is there to show for these things? And then does it start to create, if you don't commit on what these deliverables are, and maybe I go back to an Axial story for this, because this is what it kind of makes me think about. Like, do you start to drive the wrong behavior overall?
Is this a pursuit conversation?
Oh, definitely. Just pursue, just pursue. So at Axial, we created this. It was a network where you had investors. It was essentially like a Tinder site, like a dating site for money, like before Tinder was even a thing. And it was this idea of, you create what is your confidential sub $300 million investment criteria, and the network would find you selectively and reach out to you with a deal that fits that criteria. And I think there was a quarter where Sam was like, you get like a $5,000 bonus if you get them to pursue X amount, because pursuing makes them renew or grow or whatever.
No, that's
so
not why. Listen,
All right.
we needed better deals on the platform. And so the pursuit showed the person sending the deal that the platform was alive. So we stimulated by impersonating our customers to drive engagement on the sell side, hoping that that would in turn lure better sellers so that we could get better buyers. But it became an end unto itself, as Slev said.
Yeah, and so I wonder, and I think you kind of look at kind of the history of this. Snowflake was an example of this darling that was net retention. Everyone talked about. What were the behaviors go? I just think a lot about comp driving behavior. When you set those incentives at the top, what does that lead to? And how do you make sure that we have really, really good defined understanding of what that consumption is? And so I think that people rushing into consumption-based pricing or usage-based pricing, this isn't new. Like, it's been around and there's tons of companies that have done this, and they get addicted to this like spike in net retention.
You buy gas for
then-
your car on a consumption-based model.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. You do buy gas for your car on a consumption-based model, but you know exactly what you're getting, and you make that decision or not. And and it's kind of a finite amount, and you have a meter and knowing when it's happening versus like I think Sam was talking about he's just getting notifications up, you're out of your credit card, want us to
Yes.
ping it again
Yeah.
type of situation. And so I do think and then does that cause more friction? And so I think a lot of people are rushing into this and saying the customer wants to buy this way because now Claude and OpenAI and all these things. And if you don't have a really clear value, what are you getting? How does that? So it's like if you're working with consultants or you're working with lawyers and you're delivering them a value set that they actually are on an hourly rate, that's a great like that feels like the greatest place to do it. You align price to value. You can
I
make
think
sure
you're
that
right. Like, I would love on Claude to have a meter that shows me how much I have left, because recently I had three things I wanted to do. The one of them was just like an ADHD type of question, a path I wanted to go down, a question I wanted to investigate. Super useless, just interesting to me. I started there, I use up my credits, and now I can't do the two useful things I had to do. And if I had a meter that was like, you got this much left, I'd be like, I'll do the important stuff and this one I'll do later. And that would be so helpful. So let's say companies figure that out. They realize that, hey, if you're on consumption, you need to be able to show the customer what they're getting, help them manage it. So is that the job of the CS person, is to keep helping them understand what their consumption patterns are, what's coming downstream of that consumption, seen if they aren't getting real value, like a lot of us use Claude and a lot of the things we use it for aren't really driving the bottom line or the top line in any particular direction. It just feels magical and cool, but it helps you, they help you try to get to the things that actually are useful and helpful so that you have more reason to continue. Is that the purpose of CS in this environment?
That's what I think. I think it's like I actually think that's the salesperson's job, is to make sure that we're defining and not overselling, and making sure that we have an agreement on what this looks like. Here's a proof of concept. Let's turn it on. Here's what your usage patterns look like. Here's the deliverables that we got. This is what you're buying for the year. Now, we might accelerate that if we're doing X, Y, and Z, and that's what this could look like. And that, I, and it could go up 20%, or you add another 10x users, and we're delivering new products that maybe consume more usage, but here's the value and how do you bring those in? And then it's the CSM account management team's job, I believe, to take their North Star. This is why you said you purchased. These are how we've evaluated what ROI looks like for you. Now we're a quarter in. Like, let's have a strategic business review and say, these are the things that you said you were doing. Here's how we're delivering on those things. Is this what you expected? What's wrong? What's working? Like, tell me about that. And like, let's have a conversation, and then consult with them of like, actually, if this is really important, then you should go this way. If that's really important, then maybe we should think about X, Y, and Z. We can get maybe more people involved on the collaborative side.
It is really interesting. And just a kind of a quick note on this, is a story from yesterday that like hits on exactly this, the human interaction on really being able to figure out what is the customer value. So yesterday I had Claude Cowork do my expenses. And to your point, Asad, it was like, it was just small tasks that I asked it to do. And I like walked away and I came back, and Claude had been building a dashboard where it was uploading my receipts, like using all these tokens. And the only reason I caught this is because it accidentally logged out of bill.com, out of Divi. And otherwise it would have literally built a whole application
Which would have
to this
been
point.
more costly than the expenses you were trying to put through.
But the fact that it did this made me take a step back and be like, "Oh my gosh, we need to reevaluate this for our team to make sure like our team's not doing this as well." And so I think there's like this just moment in time that we're all starting to hit, be like, okay, one long answer is one thing that uses some level of tokens. But when you have Claude, it's like literally building applications when you didn't ask it to do that. And then taking snapshots of your screen, you're like, you're rethinking. And then I went back to look at the usage of exactly what this was happening. I was like, okay, I've got to like put guardrails on having like this. But
I find
in
that Gemini has the right idea. So they are obsessed with speed. It's, I think, the fastest model. And when you give the same question to Claude versus Gemini, Gemini is far less verbose. Like, it's super efficient in its answers. And the model's just not as intelligent and as capable as Claude is, but I think that's the right direction. I find Claude is like the salesperson who just like thinks the longest answer is always the best answer. It's like, come on, relax. Like, how much am I going to read?
Chill.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
want to bring back Sam's open claw back to the table. That's what I want to communicate with.
Well, I think it's an interesting point on Gemini. So we also use like we sit in the like first of all, they're clients of ours. We use Gemini a lot as well. I think the MCP connectors are a very flawed technology right now. They do not really work. I'm sure they'll get a lot better because a lot of people are working on them. But like Gemini's integrations with Gmail and your ability to create maybe agents or win reports on like why are renewals happening in our life sciences space? What are the wins? What are the themes that are happening by segment? Because those all come into my email. There's better metadata and better knowledge graphs around that. And so like you start to already like have these different things that you're using for different areas. And that's where I go back to vertical players in terms of like the really important things that like that's what you can it's kind of an easy conversation if you're a customer success manager, of account manager, and you actually really understand the product and you understand your users.
The data, and you have the fidelity around the data.
The last question I have is, as you're talking, I find the person that you're describing who can do all of these things as a world-class customer success person could also, with those characteristics and personality traits that'll enable them to be world-class at this, go be a world-class salesperson. They have a lot of overlap in terms of tendencies and characteristics. But there's a compensation difference between those two parts, right?
30%. Yeah.
On the
Chief
exec
customer
side.
officer, CRO. Just prove that
But
out.
enterprise customer success versus enterprise sales, big difference, right? Is that a challenge when you're building this sort of world-class team? How much of a challenge is that for you guys, that the people you want would also be such a good fit for that other path that is significantly more lucrative if a person takes it and is good at that?
I've never had that issue ever in my career. No, it happens all the time. I think it's a I think that in anyone's career, there is zero empathy for what anyone has done. I've sold under Sam, and it's hard. It is hard carrying a bag and a quota and starting at zero every single quarter. And if you haven't done that, you have no empathy for what a salesperson does, and you don't understand how hard that is and how stressful that is day in and day out. On the flip side, with an account manager that owns whether a customer churns and you're at 100% and it just ticks down and down and down and it can't go up above 100% on like the core metric, and then obviously growth it can, is also really stressful. And so I think it's for me it's what do you want to do? Like what are the activities that make you feel accomplished? When do you feel good? And so those are the conversations that I have. If you want to go into, I've had this conversation with many people on my team. If you want to earn the maximum amount of money, if you're in the top 10% sales, the top salespeople earn more than the CEOs. They earn more than anyone because that is a rare skill, and you get strangers to give you money, which is kind of a crazy concept. And then obviously there's enterprise selling where you're working with these relationships, but you have that over your head every single day, where the North Star of the customer success team is, how do I make sure I'm delivering more value than the price that they are paying? And if I've done that, then I'd earn the right to be commercial, versus the salesperson doesn't really care. A good one doesn't care if you've done that or not. Like they have to hit their number and figure out a way to get creative, regardless of if it's off the work that they've done or not. And I think those are different personality types and different things that motivate people at the end of the day.
I think that makes a lot of sense. And on that note, we are now going to go to our final segment. Samuel, this is time for Okay, so Samuel, question for you. HubSpot down 52% year to date, market cap 9 billion. Bullish or bearish that they get back to a 20 billion market cap ever, and why?
Bearish.
Ooh.
What's the most logical thing? Remember when Google was going to buy HubSpot?
Oh, oof.
I feel like the world is passing them by. I feel like there are structural challenges that they're facing, while smaller, more nimble AI first competitors are going to be taking market share. and they don't have entrenched positions in the enterprise that Salesforce does to support, to delay while they work on internal improvements, better product releases. I saw a really interesting article that my partner sent me, and it was a guy calling for the return of Halligan and
Uh-huh.
saying, and basically contrasting founders versus operators and saying, Yamini's an operator. She can run a playbook, but she doesn't have a vision of where this thing needs to go over 5 to 10 years. And to do that, you need founder energy. So I'm bearish. I'm curious on AJ's reaction to what I just said, assuming that she doesn't listen to this podcast.
I think the emotional so I'm bullish on he said 20 billion and I'm bullish that they'll get to 20 billion as a market cap.
That's twice as much as today.
Yeah, but they're at 4 billion in revenue. They're trading at 3x, less than 3x right now. There will be 4 billion at the end of the year, 3.7 right now. You look at him just going straight down to fact check me on this. Think they have hit their earnings where I have 100% agree with Sam. They have struggled mightily. Their investor relations, if you look at the head of the investor relations, his job prior to being at HubSpot, I know nothing about him, was an analyst at a firm. And I think that is really telling of what it takes. You have to message to algorithms, not to people. And the market isn't buying the messaging of what they're saying. And look, at the end of the day, I followed Breeze. I follow all of their earnings calls. I know everything there. And I agree with what Sam's take is on it. I don't think it's going to happen as fast as people think it's going to happen. I think Salesforce and HubSpot, even regardless of who they serve in the enterprise versus the upper mid market or the mid market, so to speak, I would say they're both fairly complex. And if anything, I actually think the TAM is bigger for who HubSpot serves. TAM is in the number of logos. I'll be clear about that. And the fact that they've gone horizontal. I know that there are like 70% of their customers are still looking for answers for HubSpot of what AI needs to look like. And they haven't let the opportunity yet pass them by, but it's getting shaky right now.
Something interesting is Salesforce is up 4% in the last 1 month. HubSpot is down 6% in the last 1 month.
When Salesforce's earnings call, I think that HubSpot's down because they had their earnings call last week and they hit earnings, but they revised guidance.
Well, either way, the market's not very happy with them. Sam, question for you.
Wait, Sam, you
Um,
just asked. Oh, Sam's. I got it. Okay, Samuel and Sam. Now I'm catching on. Go ahead.
towards the end. Question for you. You guys have this really interesting customer base for whom you solve a really interesting problem. You have hedge funds, you have venture firms, you have all sorts of interesting people that you provide data and insights to. What's your feel like based on the conversations you're having with them and the feeling you're getting out of those conversations? Do you think 2027 will be a better year or a worse year than 2026? Are you bullish or bearish that it's going to be better than 2026 was?
I'm positive. I'm feeling good about things overall. I think I'm a tech optimist. I believe that these productivity gains flow through the environment. I think there will be displacement indefinitely. I think there will be firms blowing up that were on the wrong side of bets as what's going to happen in any major disruption. But like net, I'm super positive on what I'm seeing, hearing, and feeling.
I think it's going to be a really good year as well. I think there's a lot of money that's going to be made in 26 and 27. Probably the most money ever made by the employees of tech companies will be in these 2 years in the history of the entire ecosystem, which is kind of cool. They just released how much money OpenAI's employees have made so far in secondaries. It's wild, like wild.
Yeah, I know like frontline managers that are making $10-15 million a secondary round, like that are just managing front lines. It's wild.
No company has ever done as many secondaries for their employees as OpenAI has done. AJ, last question is for you. Jason Lemkin recently said, that he can see a world in which the demand for a $250,000 a year SDR will be extremely high. You guys were extremely on the edge in terms of how you were thinking about lead generation as AI became a thing. So are you bullish or bearish on this type of SDR role becoming a norm?
Since SaaStr is going on right now, I have to be positive on Jason Lemkin, don't I? $250,000 is really hard to see. I am bullish though on SDRs doing really, really well in the AI future. And here's why. And I'm thinking about this for QuotaPath as well. As we release AI native products, and you think about a sales team, let's just say a traditional sales team, you have the BDR, SDR, AE, solutions, pre-sales engineer, all the way through customer success and account managers, et cetera, et cetera. Well, the SDR and BDR sit at the very tip of the spear. So if you're going to do experimentation in messaging, and you think about what an AE does, an AE needs to have this clarity around value proposition, differentiator, whatever it is, the thing you're selling, the what of your selling, they're not actually very well suited to be able to do the experimentation. Versus, I think in this world, the SDR, they are the ones that are really going to jump in with both feet to be able to be at this experimentation and bring in top of the funnel for new products. And given that we just had this conversation around productivity, and I'm measuring it similar to how Sam is, what's the ARR per FTE, ARR per AE and AM as well? Look at it's very similar to the SDR as we release our native product and think about it that way. So I'll go bullish.
So either SDRs are bringing a playbook with them, is like, here's how I can be 10 SDRs for you, in which case that SDR should make $500,000. But like, I don't know if that's what the SDRs are going around taking around, or is that RevOps is building this sort of capability in a company?
We had the #1 GTM engineer in the world on,
So
and
I
if you
think
think about
him
Jordan,
or a RevOps person, a great go-to-market engineer, a great RevOps person, I think their path to making $500,000 a year in a company is much clearer to me than an SDR making
is this you being
$250,000.
bullish on RevOps right now? Are you
I've
being
always been
positive
bullish
on
on
the
great RevOps. I just think they're few and far between. If you want
does
them, you should go
SEA
to
have
SDR.
RevOps?
The new RevOps is in a different era because there's this assumption about technical skills around AI. And if you are Jordan Crawford, you're technically in RevOps and you're definitely worth. The problem with these people is they're all going to go freelance. You know,
They're making so much money though, Sam. Like, we're placing VPs, SVPs of RevOps that are making maybe the second highest comp after the CRO in there. Like, in companies with $20-30 million of revenue, making $300,000 plus bases with big bonus plans and lots of equity. Like, these are
that's
well-paid
cool.
jobs.
So CCO is down 30%, but
Yeah,
all these
sorry,
other
Sam. CCO is wrong.
We brought you on just so we could shit on your role, by the way. Here we go.
Perfect.
I think
And
you
on
did
that
well.
note,
Sam Slevin, thanks for being our guest on Top Line. You're a longtime listener. You did a great job as a first-time guest, and congrats on all your success at AlphaSense. It's really exciting to see. We're really cheering for you. So thanks for coming on. Everybody else, if you could do us a kind favor and smash the subscribe button on YouTube, maybe give it a thumbs up. Slev, can you give us a thumbs up for your video?
I will be pressuring people to do this now that
Oh,
I've
please, let's get all of AlphaSense. This will get some views. That'll catch the
So how many
algorithm.
employees? What's the headcount of AlphaSense right now?
a little over 3,000.
All right,
Oh.
3,000 thumbs up. We'll expect it by the end of the
Yeah.
day
you
on
guys should have a
Sunday
LinkedIn
night.
engagement pod. You guys will take over LinkedIn.
How many people are in your organization, Slev?
About 300.
Wow, pretty cool. Great
Yeah.
job. Asad, good job, AJ. Fine job today. Thank you all for listening to Top Line. We'll catch you next week. Thanks, everybody.